the majority of American people do not want it enforced and are resisting its enforcement. That being so, the orderly thing to do under our form of government is to abolish a law which cannot be enforced, a law which the people of the country do not want enforced. Prohibition cannot be enforced for the simple reason that the majority of American people do not want it enforced and are resisting its enforcement. That being so, the orderly thing to do under our form of government is to abolish a law which cannot be enforced, a law which the people of the country do not want enforced.
Recording live from KCDI Studios, this is the Kent and Zach Show with Caitlin Guthrie, blasting anyone or anything that makes us angry. We bring critical thinking, skepticism, and ridicule to anything that makes the news or our purview. It's political, it's skeptical, it's triggering, and we're not holding anything back. I'm your host, Kent Williams, along with my buddy Zach Mann and my right-hand girl down below, Caitlin Guthrie. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Welcome back. If you've joined us before, thank you for your time and feedback, and welcome if you're new here. Be sure to like and follow, subscribe, share, and let us know your thoughts as we carry on. Preferably in the form of as many comments and reacts to other comments as you can. Facebook always does a major crackdown on visibility during election cycles, so we don't even mind if you sad or angry face us either. If you want to keep seeing us on your timeline, interaction is key.
Guys, thank you so much for being here again. I can't believe we're still doing this. I can't believe
I know.
Every week we hear another story, and somebody you wouldn't even expect in the community that they're actually watching. A lot of people aren't really comfortable liking the show or anything like that because we're controversial. We're saying things that the community wants to hear. But they don't want to say it. They're scared to say it, and that doesn't say something about your community. Then I don't know what does. Anyways, I'm the Zach Man. I'm unfiltered. I'm uncensored. I'm unapologetic. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for being here. So how is everybody tonight?
Doing great.
Alive.
So we got Caitlin a microphone, new setup. How's everybody sounded? Do we sound good? Let us know in the comments. Hey, Chris, how are you? Chris Conkey, she's one of our biggest fans. We appreciate you and all your support and love. Thank you for being here.
And your commentary.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a crazy week this week. We got a lot of good things going on. We're excited to have Senator John Dole here later on in the show. So we're going to get this thing rocking and rolling. And so now a word from this evening's event segment sponsor, the Garden City Tumbleweed Festival.
Get your tickets for the Tumbleweed Festival, August 27th and 28th. We're featuring 2 stages full of amazing live music, along with a stage just for the kids. Mark your calendars for Saturday and Sunday, August 27th and 28th on the west lawn of Lee Richardson Zoo. Enjoy great festival food, arts and activities for the kids, local spirits for the adults, and a beautiful weekend full of great live bands. To check out the lineup and purchase tickets, go to tumbleweedfestival.com.
Yeah, the Garden City Tumbleweed Festival could use a few more volunteers. They still have a couple tents and shades to put up. There is still time tonight, and they still need help for tomorrow. You can sign up by clicking on the links posted in our comments section, or call Whitney Buckman at 620-805-9429, or by email at whitbuckman, WHITBUCHMAN at BBBEHAVIORS.com. So whitbuckman at bbbehaviors.com. Kent, what can someone volunteer for?
Well, there's things like tent setup and tear down. These positions help on days before and after the festival, setting up and tearing down the large tents. This involves a lot of hurry up and wait type of work with some heavy lifting and use of sledgehammers. It's appropriate for ages 16 and older. What else do we have?
Not too old on that. I'm in the ibuprofen era. Sledgehammers are no longer an option for me. So for those that are not, there are also gate positions. These positions cover guest check-ins, volunteer check-in, merchandise tables. These positions will directly interact with the public. Positions or stations at or nearby with table and chairs, my favorite chairs, appropriate for ages 16 and older.
Yep. Keep the event safe and secure with security positions. These positions monitor the various entrances or exits of the zoo. And these positions, the volunteer will allow approved festival vendors, talents, and the staff in and out. In addition, some positions will guide traffic in the guest parking. Lots of sitting with variable shade available, appropriate for ages 16 and older.
Helpers and cleanup positions. These positions roam the festival, picking up trash, washing tables, and stocking bathrooms. In addition, some of these positions help festival staff. Appropriate ages are 11 and older, so anybody in the community can volunteer. Again, the Tumbleweed Festival is this Saturday, August 27th. They need your help. We have dropped comments, links to all the volunteer positions in the comments. Please click on one of those and volunteer if you can or able. Again, it's for kids, adults, anybody who can help. Tumbleweed Festival is a pretty awesome festival.
All right,
for the community.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's this weekend, guys. So we've talked about it on 3 shows in a row now. We've had the commercials. It's time to do it. So if you're if you can't help, then please go at least enjoy the festivities. It's going to be a good time. Sorry, Caitlin, I cut you off a little bit there.
Oh, just the more the merrier. It's not an all day volunteer position unless you want to do more than a couple hours. So that they'll have shifts in and out, and again, the more the merrier, especially for the setup and tear down.
Absolutely. All right. So we also have Champions Archive is doing a Warhammer tournament soon. If you don't know what Champions Archive is, it's a friendly local game store where you can play anything that goes on a table. So they try and cater to all ages out there. Personally, I'm a fan of Magic the Gathering, so that would be totally up my speed. So the Warhammer tournament, it's a standard tournament, 2,000 point, 1 versus 1, 40K tournament. I hope that means something to somebody. I have no idea. Feeling old. Saturday at 9:30 a.m. That is September 10th at 9:30 a.m. Check out their Facebook for all the details. There was quite a few details in there, and I was like, I'm not going to dive into all of that. So... Champions Archive, everybody check them out. Give them a chance.
Absolutely.
All right, so if you follow our Facebook page, we had some fun this week.
Please do.
It was a good time. And it'll lead us into our Super Mad segment. So you don't need me to tell you, because we still know that, of course, Troy Unruh is still the city commissioner. He has refused to step down after admitting guilt to theft from Livewell. He's also got his fingers into things in Ulysses and is trying to bring grant money out there. And we've decided to make some memes about it.
We've even had some come in from fans, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, fan-made memes. That's how you know you made it, when fans are making memes. So, the reason we've been focusing on the memes is because we have to call on Troy to step down. We have to shame him into it. We looked at the potential of doing a recall, and I just don't think that there's the legal grounds to do it, because there's no legal requirement to step down from a position because you committed a crime. And the mayor of our city,
unless it's a felony.
And it would have been a felony. $18,000 stolen is a felony amount, which is how much he has to pay back to Livewell. But I'm guessing, and we don't know this because we don't have those court documents, but I'm guessing he pled down to a misdemeanor of less than $1,500 stolen. So there just isn't the grounds to do a recall election. It would also require a large portion of signatures, which would mean that the three of us would be hoofing it through Garden City every day, getting signatures, and we all work full time. We spend a lot of time doing this show here. And so I just continue to be super mad that this guy gets to serve on a city commission where he makes decisions every day about finances in Garden City. And we literally had to create a podcast in order to have anything happen about it. And I'm super mad about it. I really am. But I could go on rants about this all day long. At the end of the day, the point is the same. Troy, apologize at the very minimum. Make a public statement saying, guys, maybe you don't know all the facts here. Maybe whatever you're going to say, but apologize to the people for at least the perception of what it is. Because to me, it perceives you stole $18,000 from Livewell, a nonprofit in Garden City.
Right.
And then ran for a government position.
And no, well, he already had it. He just refuses to step down from it. And so I really think you should step down throughout the remainder of your term.
I do too. And what really bothers me is he's down in Ulysses, doing Impact Ulysses, and it's a lot the same of what Livewell is doing in like community gardens. And what's he doing down there? And I just don't feel like he should be in a position of leadership. And
no, you can't be convicted of a crime and continue to hold that, not by any moral means.
Yeah. And it would be hard to do the petition, like we have to prove misconduct in office. He hasn't done that. You have to be convicted of a felony. And the third is where I think, misconduct in office is where I think we could get him at. But the third one is failure to perform his duty as prescribed by law, which he hasn't done. So it would be a large case. It would take time. It would take money. We don't have that.
And with great power comes great responsibility. And he is not being responsible with the power.
Right. So we're here. We're voicing the opinion of what many people have told us and asked us to help them with. We're the voice of the voiceless, having uncomfortable conversations and trying to bring those things to light. And moving on, this evening we have the USD 457 Board of Education had a meeting on Tuesday. The COVID plan was there again for the fourth time, and I do have a lot I want to say about the COVID plan, but I think we'll save it for next week, where we can dive into it. What I do really want to talk about tonight, though, is fifth grade music in the district has been cut this year, and it's been something that has been brought up in previous years. I remember Summer Miller, she spoke at this board meeting, who's the director of the orchestra at the high school and does the intermediate schools for orchestra, spoke, and Haley Rottenberg, I believe her name is, she does middle schools and elementary schools as well for orchestra. spoke again at this board meeting. And I say again because it seems to be a trend for them. They have to come and defend fifth grade music in USD 457, and it makes sense to have music for fifth graders on many levels. We already offer it to sixth graders. It's in the building. We have the funding for it. We have the instruments. We have what we need for it. What we don't have is staff. Summer Miller has said on multiple occasions they probably need 2 or 3 more teachers for the band and orchestra and choir departments. It is a specialized position. You know, you have to know how to play a violin and a saxophone if you're doing band and all the other instruments to help them. You have to have an understanding of music. So it is a little harder to fill those positions, but we haven't made those steps to do it. It was before the board, this last board in May of 2021. And here it is again. And this time we have cut fifth grade music out. Fifth graders, 86 kids for orchestra, fifth graders. It was a record number this year for fifth graders. Showed up to either their open house or the first day of school and found out they no longer had orchestra or band or choir. You know, and that's just in town. That doesn't include our country schools. We have 2 teachers that travel elementary for band and choir and orchestra for 6th grade. They go to 6 different schools. 2 teachers. Each. You know,
I'm sure he was behind a vote for getting rid of that.
Yeah. And then Summer Miller
It's always
and the band. Summer Miller and the band teacher go from the high school, which is a 6A program, and it's huge. It deserves a lot of attention, you know, from those 2 teachers, and they get pulled away and have to go to the middle schools, and they only get half of the attention that they need there. There have been so many studies about how music affects a kid that's growing and learning on many different levels.
Critical thinking, emotional thinking.
Yeah, you know, blood flow to the brain. Arts are the first thing that always end up getting cut whenever. But this isn't really a budget or funding issue. This is more or less a staffing issue and a scheduling issue. They have adapted. Summer Miller came here 21 years ago, as an orchestra teacher, and she was from Eastern Kansas. She hated the idea of coming out here, and she's been here for 21 years, which I think is awesome. She believes in the program that they have built there around the music program, and it is a staffing problem. And she said, you know, they've brought things to the table that are reasonable, like the assistant orchestra teacher, allowing her to go to some of the schools. They've bused kids to different schools for orchestra or band, so that way it wasn't so hard on the teachers in the past. We've had solutions for this, and instead of finding a solution this year, administration just cut it for 5th graders. So I want to give a shout out to the Board of Education. You know, they listened to Summer Miller and Miss Rottenberger, and it was Jackie Gidget in the discussion part of the board meeting. She brought up and said that it was important to her, and you know, other board members followed in that sentiment, and I think it's going to be something that they're going to handle. I hope they handle, and I'm excited. I'm really interested to see how it goes forward. You know, maybe we won't get it back this semester, but maybe we can have it next semester for these kids, and we can build that program and make it stronger because it deserves to be. There is a huge demand in our community for music and arts, and it's being able to start them young and support them. And
I wonder how many cuts the football team took.
To me, that, you know, I mean, I get that sentiment and that point, but I still believe that athletics are important as well. But the funding and the attention needs to be spread equally, you know, throughout all levels of engagement.
I bring up the football because we have tons of studies that show that football can be detrimental and the injuries and all of that, but we overfund that program. And there's tons more studies that show that music and the arts improve literacy, improve creativity, improve IQs. I mean, the list goes on and on. And last I checked, we're there to educate the kids. But we overfund the tool that bashes their heads in and underfund the tool that educates them. And it just, no, somebody's got to say it, and that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, and I think that, they can fix this problem pretty easy, and I hope that they do, and that attention's there. So we are going to move on with the subject of education. On tonight's show, we have Senator John Dole with us here tonight.
Speaking of educators.
Speaking of educators, and a big proponent for Kansas education, he's been out there, he's been live. John, welcome to the show. How you been, buddy?
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Oh.
So,
thank you.
Most of us know who you are. Can you briefly tell our audience a little bit about yourself and when you came into politics and your journey to state senator?
Okay, I grew up in Ingalls, Kansas, which is just down the road. Was a teacher for 20 years, and then bought my own business. I wanted to see what capitalism was about because socialism wasn't paying the bills. And then I ran for city commission. I ran for Congress against Jerry Moran in 2006. That didn't work out real well. I was talked into running for city commission. I did that. I thought the guy who was a good friend of mine was in Topeka wasn't doing what the people wanted. We had about 5 votes that we asked him that we needed him on. He didn't come through for us, and on the 5th one, I told him if he didn't vote how our city needed, I was going to run against him. If I ran against him, I was going to beat him. I'm a very competitive person. Well, he didn't vote the way we wanted. I ran. That's how I got here.
Yeah.
So your motto's always been that you're only going to run for 2 terms and then you're going to move on.
2 terms, yes, and that's. I've said that as a teacher, as a government teacher. I believe strongly in term limits, but I don't believe that it should come as a law. I like less government's best government, and but I would be a hypocrite if I kept trying to serve. And it's time for me to come home.
Yeah. But would you, if your opponent was the same as last cycle, Lon Pishney, would you hang it up this time?
It's somebody else's turn. It's somebody else's turn to take the hand off. It's, I've done 8 years. It's time for new ideas. It's time for me to come home. It's not fair to my wife. It's not fair to me. And there's other things I want to do.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So we talked for weeks about Garden City and City Commissioner Troy Unruh. You've served on our council. Are you comfortable with him in a leadership position?
I can't speak strongly, hardly at all on that situation. I was just, the most I've ever heard of it was just prior to me being on here. Without a newspaper, that it makes it really hard for me to stay up. It used to be so easy because I was an avid newspaper reader, and now
it's literally why we started the show.
Yeah, if I can't follow it on Twitter or Facebook, and I'm not big on I don't post much by stock, I guess. But so I can't answer that question because I don't know enough about it.
Do you think that a person who pleads guilty to theft should continue to hold an elected position?
I think that's
just in a general sense.
Yeah, I think that's the decision of the city commission. I think we can all have our own opinions on it. Has he been convicted? He pleaded guilty. Has he been convicted? That's.
Well, usually guilty means conviction. Yeah.
No.
He has been.
I'm not going to sit here and judge anybody. I have a lot of people judging me, so I'm not going to judge somebody else.
It's fine. We're going to ask you the tough questions tonight. Okay. We talked about that earlier. You said, "Bring it on, brother." And full disclosure to our audience, I am a John Dole fan. He's a friend. I think everybody here has voted for him previously. Maybe not Caitlin. I'm not sure, but we don't have to know. So we are going to ask some tough questions here tonight. Some of them may be uncomfortable for some of our viewers, and for John, and for myself.
Ken's been on eggshells all week. It's been great.
All week. It's been fun.
The recall. So
Yeah.
we did a
Let's talk
recount
about it.
recently, John, and it cost $120,000. We allowed it to go to a credit card. We traditionally haven't done that in the past. Now the funder of the recount is suing. We just learned that this morning. Do you think we need this? Does this help the Republican agenda?
In a funny sort of way, this has all been kind of good, because we've had over 10,000 people that have registered to vote who has not registered in the past. We had over 13,000 people in my Senate district that voted in a primary. That has never happened. So in a way, it's a good thing because people are getting engaged. Is it the right thing? No, but the right thing is for people to be engaged.
Right.
I have all.
But
Go ahead.
I'm asking specifically about the recount. Do we need this recount? Should we let things like this happen? I guess.
In our election cycles, yeah.
If they pay for it, yes. But
But
the credit card, they need to be paid for. He can't get off on this. He needs to pay.
Okay,
that money.
that's what I was looking for, more on the credit card part of it, because
Yeah.
the guy tried to put up his house, and it was just red flags all over. Of he's never going to pay this bill. He's never going to pay it.
Yeah, I think that hopefully they go after him on this because he signed a document he had to sign. Our Secretary of State's a very solid. I've served with him in the House for 4 years. He's a solid guy. This guy's going to end up paying it somehow or another.
You don't think this will
I'm
get
gonna
passed
clip
on
that.
to taxpayers?
Excuse me?
You don't think it'll get passed on to taxpayers?
It won't, no, but what will happen, in my opinion, that he will have donations. I mean, when you got the Catholic Church putting that much money into this thing, there's going to be people step up that were for this amendment, strongly for this amendment, and help him along. That would be, if I had to bet, because we have sports betting now, I guess this isn't a sport, but I would say that people will help fund him but it won't come on the taxpayers, absolutely not.
So they want to do this vote, the amendment to the Constitution on abortion rights, and they want it to be done again in November. Are you okay if we have this vote every cycle?
No, we've done it. We've done it. It wasn't close. It was. I felt like because of how loud it's been, how long it's been, they did they did it the right way. I think we needed to have this vote. But it was very obvious how this vote turned out, that we as a people do not want this amendment. And it was, I think it was loud and clear. There was a lot of us that for full disclosure, I'm a pro-life guy, but I don't think government has any business being involved with people's bodies. And so I think it's a personal issue. It's a personal thing. So, but I'm not a woman.
So that's pro-choice. Just to be clear.
No, it's not. No, the thing is
you can be personally pro-life and externally pro-choice. I mean,
yeah.
It's kind of like alcohol,
Where I was at, Zach, on this thing is that I try real hard. And I think this is one of the reasons I have support like people like you and Kent and such, or did have, is that I go around my district and I try real hard to listen to what they're saying. There was no question in my mind that my district wanted to have this amendment. And so consequently in my district, the 39th district, we had over 13,000 people voted. Over about 8,000 voted against it. It was a 60-40 for it. So consequently, it's not my job how I feel about it. It's how my people feel about that I'm representing. That's why I got into politics, because the guy didn't listen. It was 60-40. That's not even close. That's people of my district wanted this amendment to be on the ballot. It was on the ballot. It being loud and clear how they wanted. So that's where we're at.
So you serve on the Transparency and Ethics Committee.
Yes.
What is the committee going to do about the text message that went out the day before the constitutional amendment?
Oh,
Til-
with
Till's-
Tim Hill's
Tim Hill's camp.
Hill's camp.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know. I don't have any idea. It's you know, it needs
Seems
to
like
be
an
addressed,
ethics
but-
thing.
Yeah,
It should be
does.
addressed. The
Oh,
language
I-
was specifically, deceptive.
No question about it. But I don't have my magic wand or my little ball here to tell you what we are and what we're going to do. And so, I think it would be addressed. I would believe it would be addressed. But I've been I'm not. I get along with everybody in my party and such. But let's just say that I'm not near the top of the hierarchy because of my moderate views. And so I'm not brought in a lot of these kind of discussions.
So prior to the voting situation, you don't get to be part of what gets
The
put
committees.
forth.
Well, we have a committee, of course, and so when it goes in there, the chairman of the committee on the ethics is Elaine Bowers from Concordia. She determines what we're going to hear during ethics. I can go to Elaine. She's right across the hall from me. I said, Elaine, we need to have this. But at the final decision is the chairman of that committee, which would be Elaine Bowers. As a committee member, I really don't have any say-so in it. Of course, leadership has say-so in it. If leadership wants it, they'll have it. Otherwise, that person would be removed as a chairman. But the chairman yields a lot of power as far as what we're going to hear in committee.
How are chairmans installed? Is that
by
a vote?
by the president, and
Ah.
the president chooses them, and then and we have several removed. If you don't follow the line, you get kicked off. And I'll give you a great example of this. I was asked to be chairman of commerce, which is a really good committee. And when Ty Masterson, who I get along with really well, when Ty come and asked me to do it, I said, Ty, no. And he said, no. And I said, I don't want to put you or me in that position. He goes, what are you talking about? I said, first time I make a vote that you don't like, they have a group called the Truth Caucus. That's the pretty far right people, and Ty's a member of that. Truth Caucus will be all over you about relieving me. And he says, John, I won't relieve you. And I believe Ty on that. But the pressure on him would be extreme. If I get fired, there'd be 5 people that know that I was the commerce chairman. There would be thousands and thousands that know I got fired from that, which, to me, it's not worth that. It's so I did have the opportunity to be a chairman. I told Ty that I did not want any vice chairs because that's like vice president. You don't do a dadgum thing. You sit there, you get set by the deal, but you still can't. You can't tell Elaine that we need to hear this. I could do that from where I'm sitting now, and I will. I think other people will. But at the end of the day, it's Elaine and Ty's choice.
For what it's worth, I think that's a commendable choice. I would probably make a similar one, just based on the. I feel like I think I would feel like a sense of imposter syndrome that I don't like. What qualifications do I have in order to be in this position? Am I available to listen to what needs to go forth? All of those things. So I'm.
But
relatable.
The text was wrong. It was misleading, but was it a violation of the First Amendment? And that's where we're going to go with that. And so maybe some of us think that we did. If they don't think it is, we're not going to. I don't want to spend a whole lot of money on this text. I mean, I would take a lot of time. But if we're going to take this to court and such, I would want it to be a lot more specific. That First Amendment allows you to say or do a lot of things that probably aren't right.
And I guess my concern with it is they were more or less just testing the water on it because they did it the day before and they wanted to see what the repercussions were. They were fine because there's so much funding behind this vote yes bill that they could see what the consequences could potentially be, and they had the money to pay whatever fine it was. And if we don't do anything, when they do this again in November, it's gonna get worse. It doesn't get better when there's no repercussions, and that's why I'm concerned about the Ethics Commission not having already a plan on what they're going to do about it.
So, Zach, do you think it was a violation of the First Amendment?
I think that
As a candidate using PAC money to do so, absolutely.
Yeah, he
was
wasn't.
Absolutely.
He wasn't a candidate.
Bill's camp's
He
not a candidate. He was a citizen.
No, but he used
Doing-
super PAC money to pay for it.
And
We don't know that.
isn't there a transparency
That's what the news says.
requirement to put forth that that's who was sending the text? Is that not?
Yeah, and Zach's, it came from a super PAC out of Washington, D.C. But there again, is it a violation of the First Amendment? I don't know. And I feel like I'm pretty well versed in law and such in government because I've been there. I taught the amendments forever. You know, I was a government teacher. The Bill of Rights is so important. Is that a violation of the First Amendment? I can't tell you. I can't tell you one way or another. And I'm not trying to be bad here or whatever. I'm just telling you, I don't know if it's a violation of the First Amendment.
And I'm not sitting here acting like this is John Dahl's fault for not doing anything about it. Obviously, I studied your voting record very recently. I understand how often you are the outlier. I'm not oblivious to it, but at the same time, we sent you there to fight, and 50% of Finney County, like, it wasn't 50-50 on that vote, but it was damn close to it. 49-51, I think it was.
Was 48-52 actually.
40. Okay. I didn't have that one right in front of me, but yeah, it was really close. And so almost half of our county almost lost a lot of rights. And they're literally sending out text messages trying to trick new voters into doing it wrong. And if that's not a violation of ethics, not violation of law, ethics, then I don't know what is.
Well, a violation of ethics, what do we do about that? And the other thing is, Zach, is that I represent the 39th Senate District. It was 60-40. So you got to keep that in mind. We could talk about however we want to with Finney County. And in fact, if you broke it down to the 123rd, just Garden City itself, I don't know if they did that, but on the 123rd itself, I would imagine that the no's won probably overwhelming, but because once you get out in the county, it gets real red real fast. So I can't look at, I used to, and I'm a big Garden City dude, but I'm a 39th Senate District representative, so I got to do what the 39th Senate District wants. It was very clear, 60-40, that they wanted me to vote to kick this thing out, put it on the ballot. And it was a very, very difficult vote, but looking back on it, my gosh, I'm so glad it got on the ballot because boy, did this send a message. And then I get a call from the Kansas City Star and the Topeka Capital asked me about this. They said, is Western Kansas turning blue? And I said, no. What Western Kansas people are is that we don't want government in our business. And I think that goes from the right, the left, the middle. We don't want government in our business. This amendment put government in our business. And so personally, I voted that direction. But I'm not up to Topeka serving me personally.
So how do we move forward keeping misinformation like that out of our politics and government? Because that's just wrong. How do we...
The amendment campaign certainly was not factual in giving their information. And so the angle that I wanted to make sure that I was coming at was you have your choice and you get to vote, and I'm try to remain unaffiliated myself, so whatever your decision is, either way, I want you to be well informed. So we went through breaking down the language of those things and the way that the campaign went. It was I don't know how we combat that.
Well, what we do is that if we pass legislation like that, I don't think we have that on our books right now, but we could always pass legislation that would outlaw text such as that, misleading text, if it would pass the Supreme Court scrutiny test on the First Amendment. That would be the thing. But we could certainly pass legislation against misleading text like that. But you look at postcards. My first run I had in the Senate was 2016 against Larry Powell. I had 29 postcards sent against me. They had pictures of me. There was hardly any of them factual. And,
Yeah, I mean, that
was,
negative campaigning is powerful.
It's very powerful. And I had 29 of those sent on me. So if we're going to touch on text, we're going to have to touch on postcards. And we have to touch
I
on
agree.
everything else.
That's valid.
It was exhausting.
I would want to
And
have
you
that
know,
conversation.
you make a good point. You do.
From both sides, it was really exhausting, the mailers. I got 3 or 4 large, huge things in the mail every day for like a month. It's got to stop. And that's what I think is ethics. There should be codes of ethics that are written to protect us from those types of things, including, as we mentioned earlier, City Commissioner Troy Unruh. Dun, dun, dun. There should be a code of ethics for our city commission.
There is. It's called elections. By the way, I had a great Christmas decoration on my tree. I took those postcards, put a clip in it, and hung them on my tree on the 29th. Because when
I
you
probably
win,
would have done something like that as well.
Yeah, when you win, you can do things like that.
Yeah.
So another hard question, John. You did not vote in 3 of transgender bills that came up in this session, including a bill that would prevent transgender girls from participating on female teams. Right. But when the bill came up a second time, you voted yes. Mm-hmm. Would you consider yourself an ally of the trans youth community in Kansas?
Yeah. Here's where I came from. That is there again. I don't think government has any business being in anybody's personal life. Period. If a person we shouldn't be in bedrooms, if a person wants to be transgender, that's fine, that's good. People need to live their lives as long as they follow the law. Here's my problem with transgender, and I worked really close with Tom Witt on this. If you guys would have listened to the debate, I did have 3 amendments before I voted on this. And one of the amendments that really bothered me about this was having elementary in it, because the people that were proponents of this was talking about scholarships. How is an elementary kid going to be scholarship? So I showed them that was made it critical of that vote right there. I mean, of that bill. But at the end of the day, here I was against it, but it wasn't our job. It was the job of the Kansas State Activities Association. That's what I meant from the very start. I really feel strongly that the legislature, and we don't do this well at all, we need to stay in our lane. And the legislature we have now, we go out of our lane. We try to get in the executive. We try to do it with the judicial. You see it all the time. We need to stay in our lane. The Kansas State Activities Association needs to take care of this. I made a number of calls to the Kansas State Activities Association about this, and so you guys need to do your job. And the only problem I had with the transgender, as far as athletics were concerned, I asked the director, the executive director of the Kansas State Activities Association. I said, let's say we had a transgender pitcher at the state tournament. Would she be, and the other team didn't want to play because she threw the ball like 100 miles an hour. And he said the team that didn't play would forfeit that game. That being said, this is not an issue in Kansas now.
So, yeah, again, we're voting on hypotheticals, not on actual problems.
Right.
I mean...
And I will give you that Cassius to step in. That's within the purview of...
If Kansas State Activities Association would have done their job, we wouldn't have had this situation, in my opinion, and it wouldn't have been played out like it did. It made us come out who voted against it. You wouldn't believe the mail I got. It would make what you guys are doing to one of the commissioners child's play to what I was getting in the mail and the phone calls I was getting. It was incredible. I didn't know I was so many things.
Sure.
So that's my job.
The problem with these bills, and I know you're not the one introducing them, but voting yes on even one of them, the problem is this: when transgender youth exist and their odds of committing suicide go up by like 70% when they can't be included in certain things. And so we're weighing out a scholarship potential or a 100-mile-an-hour pitch versus a 70-mile-an-hour pitch or whatever. versus the life of a child that may take their life because they're not allowed to be included in these things. Those aren't hypotheticals, though. Those are statistics.
The statistics aren't with us being athletics. The transgender population in general, suicide rate is how high what you're saying, Zach. So it's not whether they're a softball pitcher or not. That population is very high risk when it comes to and suicide rate.
But those risks drop dramatically when there's programs that are inclusive to them.
You'd have to show me the statistics on that, because I looked at every statistic there was. I had so many people in my office. With the transgender, you show me a statistic that says if they can play softball, that's going to cut down suicide rates 40%. And I would.
And I'm not saying.
I imagine we don't have that data yet.
Because it's not out there. There was one person in Kansas that would have affected. It was just a gotcha bill, is what it was. Yeah, it was a gotcha.
Yeah, and that's the problem. The problem isn't the potential of it. The problem is we're creating hypotheticals and their scare tactics for children that are, especially in high school, that are learning about their government right now. They're noticing these bills. They're seeing these things. They're looking them up. This generation is far more informed than any generation we've ever had, and so when these bills are constantly being proposed. Seeing you abstain from them didn't bother me at all. Seeing the one that you voted for, that's where I was just like, damn it, now I got to put a question in there about it.
Well, actually, I didn't abstain from them. I voted no on them, and that's when it came on the veto, because they had a call of the House. When they have a call of the House, you have to vote, and I voted no on them. I wanted the Kansas State Activities Association to do their job, so I would go back to my office and call them again and said, listen, this is going to pass. This is your job. You do your job. And when they couldn't do their job, I had to do mine. And there again, Zach, if we go back, and if I'm representing my district, what do you think this district, the 39th Senate District, not Garden City, what do you think the 39th Senate District would have voted on a transgender?
On a transgender what?
It would have been the same as vote no.
It would have been worse than the 60-40. And it's wrong, but that's reality, and that's who I work for.
But we are, as Zach said, we do have a young voter base that is energized.
Yeah. Good.
And they are well researched. And backtracking just a little bit, Scott Poor asked a question. I'll put it on screen now. If the outcome of this abortion vote, will this lead to an effort to change the Supreme Court selection? Do you think that's the next big thing?
I don't think, and I know Scott very well. Scott's a great guy, attorney. We've been trying to change how Supreme Court justices are being selected in the state of Kansas long before this came. This will make it a bigger push, and Scott knows that. This will make it a bigger push to change how the Supreme Court justices are picked. And that's just, but that's
back when I was learning about the Supreme Court in school. Those positions were supposed to be unbiased. Now they're blatantly, almost campaigning for these sort of initiatives themselves in order to get elected. It's a frustrating shift.
That's the sad thing about state versus federal. At the federal level, there's no recall. At the state level, every 4 years or 6 years, whatever it is, you have to vote it's just an up or down vote to retain them or not retain them. This next, if we have, and how we're selecting, there's a big push to select how we do it at the federal level, with the governor choosing, and then we confirm her up or down, not have attorneys decide who to be the best judges like we do now. But there's going to be, that's always going to be there. And there's going to be, if we think that the abortion issue is going to go away, that's a big mistake. We've had abortion bills ever since I've been up there for 10 years, and we'll have abortion bills until I leave in 12 years. That's just the way our makeup of our legislature is. But with this amendment being stopped, it's going to narrow what they can and cannot do. Here's something that I think that we need to push. I think every time that we see these bills coming out, it's the punishment of the woman. I strongly believe that the father of that baby should get the same punishment, if we're going to punish him, as the baby of that mother should get. I don't think there's any reason why the father shouldn't get the same punishment as a mother if they're going to punish a woman for any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the criminalization part of it was definitely wild. So this one is going back a little ways, and I don't want to dive that far back into your voting record, but this is a big one for somebody claiming to be pro-life. Why should adoption agencies get to deny somebody based on their religion?
That's nuts. We sat here, we have 70-some foster kids sleeping in offices. Our adoption rules, our adoption laws are so difficult and so full of bureaucracy. I have a person in my district right now, the mother has given away 3 of her child, and this couple has one of those kids. She had another baby. They paid her. She's blackmailing them, but they paid that because they want this baby. She got the baby back, and now they have her again. So these laws have to be changed. I couldn't agree with you more. We have to make adoption much more easy. And if we're pro-life like we say we are, we have to make adoption much easier. Plus, we need to do something about our foster care situation because I think we had 13 last year. We had no idea where they were. They were probably, you think sex trafficking.
Yeah, I mean,
don't think I just get after Republicans on it because Laura Kelly campaigned. She told me to my face that she was going to solve this foster care issue. She was going these missing foster kids, and she hasn't touched it. So I have my own criticisms on that side.
I was going to say, if it makes you feel any better, because we are to the left of center, we spend most of our time criticizing people on that side as well, because that's where our energy goes. So
bring it. I've been voting for 20 years. That's all I can do is what I try to tell people. I've had politicians tell me, "Well, John, I don't really feel this way, but this is the way I can be. How I got to be to get elected." I try to be, and I think I don't know you well enough, but I know Zach and Kent well enough that what you see is what you get from me. If I believe something, I'm going to shoot it to you straight. I try. If I change my mind, which I have that right to do, the people who I try to contact, say, "Hey, I'd switch because this, and this," but that's happened very, very seldom in my 10 years up there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that one. I will end this with one last question. Out of all of these votes that hit the floor and all these things that were discussed, we still can't get a vote on medical, let alone recreational cannabis. You knew you weren't going to get out of this without me asking about it. Being on the board for Kansas NORML, I have an inside look at what bills were going to be presented and were supposed to be discussed on the floor, but that didn't happen this year. Hemp would be a game changer for our area. You know this. Yeah. Medical cannabis would be a game changer for patients in our state. You know this. Recreational cannabis would be a game changer for our educational system if we were to follow a Colorado-like model. And we have a 1,500 teacher shortage. You know this. Why can we not get this pushed harder?
I introduced a bill for medical marijuana last term. When I was in the House, we passed it out of the House. It's been passed out of the House twice now. Medical marijuana has passed out of the House. Yep. One person can stop it. And in the past, it was Susan Wagle, and now it's Ty Masterson. The president of the Senate can, whether you can have it or not, whether you're going to see it on the floor, that was the thing that shocked me the most, was the power that leadership has. If you can't vote on it, even something that's more than that, Zach, and I'm with you. I think, I don't know about rec, but medical, there's no question. It's just absolutely asinine that we don't. But Medicaid expansion, that is just, the working poor, these people aren't, the people that are not working get Medicare, but the working poor, this Medicaid expansion, not passing Medicaid expansion, is, when I had bishops calling me on this value in both amendment, I would sit there and I says, if you guys would push for Medicaid expansion as much as you push for this, it would save more lives than this amendment would.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
we can't get it past that. And so that's maybe that's why for 2 years now, it's time for me to go because, I've been banging my head on the wall. I told you I voted for medical marijuana when I was in the House, and that was 7 years ago.
And the reason it's so frustrating is because you have people like Gene Solentrope that still hold their position, and he drove the wrong way up an interstate, drunk, leading a high-speed chase, cussing cops the whole time being arrested. Alcohol did that, and it's so legal in our state. Again, I know this isn't an issue that you directly can solve or whatever, but if there's one thing I would ask for my senator to scream at the top of his lungs, it would be this.
Well, let me tell you something. We talked here, and I hope I made it very clear how powerful leadership is. Gene Solentrope was a majority leader, which is the second highest thing you can have. It's powerful. I mean, very powerful. He lost that. So to say he lost anything, it didn't lose anything is wrong. He lost the second most powerful, and he got kicked to the back of the line.
What would happen to any average citizen in a situation like that?
I can't say that because I don't know. I can make assumptions like you are, but I'm not.
Come on.
So you tell me, Zach, what would happen?
If I led a high-speed chase on the wrong way on the interstate and I cussed cops the entire time being arrested, I would not be doing this podcast right now.
Okay.
I would be in jail.
Yeah. What happened with him is, first of all, he could pay for good lawyers, and second of all, he had no priors. And so I was talking to several judges that are friends of mine. I said, what's going to happen with Gene? And they said he's going to get probation, which he got. And the only way I can't get fired from being a state senator unless I can, I can't get fired. And so I don't have to even go up there. When it starts in January, I don't even have to ever go up there. I don't have to go to any committee meeting. You can't get fired once you're elected. That's crazy, but That's reality.
So we need to be paying attention to who we...
Yeah, and so,
making sure that they're present.
Yeah, I would lose my $84 a day, what you get paid.
Yes, how
88.36. I saw it.
I feel like that is definitely part of the issue. Is certainly that somebody like me could never afford to run for this, and I spend a lot of time on this language online myself, so I would love to get paid for doing that, and it's not worth it. How do we?
You either got to be young before you started your career, and have rich parents or a sugar daddy. I've seen it both there. Or you got to be old like me, or you got to all be old like me, and done with my career. But somebody in you guys' age, I don't know how you could do it unless you had a boss that would allow it to happen. That would be the only way, because I think on my W-2 it was like $8,500 for the year, and that's counting. That's everything, and you can't make it on.
Wow, that's way less than I thought it was actually. So if you could give a suggestion to us as voters, what should we focus on this coming election, the next midterm, as far as should we be looking at Supreme Court judges? Should we be looking at who gets those chairs? How do we as voters give our opinions on who should
Here's
be
what
in this position?
this is one of the things that came out of this amendment, this abortion amendment that I love. We signed up like 10,000 new people. That's incredible. Here's another thing that's interesting. I think a moderate Republican that's known throughout the state could win the first district in a congressional race, because they threw Lawrence in there in Manhattan. We need to make people for their gender gerrymandering, which is every state does it, everybody does it. That's just a given. We need to make them pay for that. You know what? We could hire a moderate Republican that's known, a Don Heineman, for example, or a Russ Jennings would have been great. But if because you're going to have all that Manhattan vote, which is turning more and more blue, and Lawrence, so you need to find somebody that would help at the federal level, and at the state level, you have to stay engaged, because the stuff that goes on up there, you guys, I hear my constituents, I'll hear about 1 out of every 200 bills that we look at. We look at thousands of bills every year. Some of them good, some of them bad. So you need to stay in contact with us. I try real hard to stay in contact. My phone's always there, my email's there, and I listen to Zach yell at me every time I make a vote he don't like. And so I love it though, Zach. And so
You haven't blocked me yet, so
I won't block nobody.
That's more than most of our politicians around this area. They don't like us,
No,
I do.
no,
You
day.
talk to the
If
community.
I can't answer your question, you might not like my answer, but I'll always answer. You might not like it, and that's life. But I believe strongly I have to represent my district, my whole district, all 10 counties, and I have to be truthful. And those are the two things that I strive for when I do this.
well, Wheeler won't even walk down the same grocery aisle as me, so
I might, you kind of remind me. I'm an old man, but remember Wolf? You ever heard of Wolfman Jack?
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So take a look at his picture and take a look at you. Especially when it's not real clear.
I was like a tiny little picture over here.
You got Wolfman Jack going on.
That's awesome.
That's better than the Jesus, which I get most often.
I would never compare you to Jesus.
I might.
Hey, Zach may be the kind of sin Jesus died for, if you believe in that. John, I want to thank you so much for coming by the show tonight. We have 1,000 more questions for you. I don't want to hold you any longer. You've been here for quite some time. But we do look forward to having you down on the show down the road again and talking to us, answering our questions, and the people that are viewing us as well.
Well, thank you, and I'll come on anytime I can. When Zach was calling me and giving me heck about something, he said, we ought to have you on the show, and I said, ask me. He said, well, I'm asking you, and I said, okay. That's how it went down, wasn't it, Zach?
Yeah.
That's exactly how it went. That's exactly how it went.
If you ask me if I got time, I will do it. If I can, I'll tell you why I can. I can.
I think
look.
these types of conversations are a lot better than text or even a phone call. A lot of things could be misconstrued either way, so facial expressions and everything, and so that's why I avoided you for this long, anyways, because I wanted it here in that real emotion and the real answer. So thanks again, John. We're going to cut you loose, let you go for the night. Best of luck to you. We'll be in touch, and we'll have you on again down the road.
Let me just thank you guys for what you do here and what this is, and it is extremely important because media is where it's at. Media is changing. It's all up to you guys because I'm too old.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you.
God
That
bless.
means a
Thank
lot
you, John.
coming from you.
It does.
Yeah.
Take care.
Good night.
Thank you, John. Well, that was John Dole.
That was a fantastic.
Discussion and interview.
Certainly.
I was nervous about it all week.
I try not to have.
I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
I was seething.
we are.
We have mucho discussion.
We do. What I love about what we're doing here is we are purposely going after uncomfortable conversations.
Yes, we are not our own echo chamber. We spend a lot of time disagreeing with each other.
Yeah, we do.
And loving each other.
Yeah, we do. Our chat group is a really weird Venn diagram.
If we ever gave you guys an insight into that, I bet you'd be like, "Oh,
that's kind of
also not what I
weird. How do they do this? How do they do this?" But we do agree on a lot of things, and at the end of the day, it's about leaving the world a better place for our children, right? I mean, that's what I was always taught and brought up. So,
absolutely. I've got a Gen Z and a Gen Alpha, and they are well-informed people. Just like you said, they know how to navigate and avoid the things that we had to unlearn ourselves, and so...
Yeah.
And
My
they will
17-year-old
spend time writing your ass about it.
Yeah.
Next
They
week,
don't believe in the bullshit. They
Exactly.
cut right through
No.
it, and it's pretty awesome and amazing. And I think we have I'm so excited about this new group of voters. I hope they
I
stay
am
energized.
too. I want to say
and-
I do not appreciate the fact that my body had to go up onto a legislative decision in order for those voters. We are great. I don't want to sound ungrateful that they came out because it was definitely a powerful statement. I hope the next goal would be to keep them engaged on matters that truly do affect the working poor, especially, and so that we we're allowed to vote or not vote.
And I had been messaging Dahl, and I was very upset with him, and still am upset that he voted that we should have the vote yes thing. But in my research this week of his voting record and whatnot, I did get reminded that he makes a lot of important votes that he does abstain from his party on, and
that's hard.
I just realized that as well.
I hate that.
we like George Carlin in our group a lot, and one of his things, there's a big old club, and we ain't in it, and we're definitely not in it, and I don't think John Toll is in that.
And
club
we are the most
either,
affected by these decisions, so make that make sense.
I just wish we could get some politicians that would fight as hard to be loud and annoying to the party that fights them as the people who fight to stay there when they fuck up, like Gene Solentrope, the Troy Unruhs. When these people fight so hard to stay in those positions, but you don't have a politician who, you remember when AOC was first elected, she was going around to "Where's Mitch?" trying to find him, going to Nancy Pelosi's house. She was badgering everybody in the beginning, and then that was before she got played into complacency and whatnot.
It didn't seem like long, and I was pretty. I scrutinized her quite a bit, but there were a lot of people who really held hope that she would continue to do that and not be trapped into those party decisions or playing the game, doing the performance, all of that.
Yeah.
They keep George Carlin on that list just in case we resurrect him.
It's like, well, I'll probably be right next to him on the list.
Well, folks, we want to thank you so much. Yeah.
Next week? What are we doing?
Well, that's what I'm getting to. I'm going to roll this out. I'm just going to roll this out.
Trying to go away.
We don't have an outline set anymore. We're going completely off the cuff.
We reached the end of it, so Ken's like,
we went like this.
That was a good interview. We've had a lot of interesting things go on this week. One of the things I do want to say is, and Caitlin brought it up in our chat group that we wanted to address, is if you're listening to our show and you fear that you may be retaliated against, if you're a teacher or you're a city worker or something like that, if something's going on and you need somebody to talk to about it and tell that story, we're happy to listen. And we want to thank
if you want that story told anonymously, we're your guys.
We're your guys. We're not afraid to talk about it. And we want to thank all of our we just hit 300. We came over 300. I think we're like at 305, 07. I don't know who's watching. But we want to thank everybody that's liked us. We want to thank everybody that's followed us. And we want to thank all of you that are watching us, that don't like us or follow us, but are keeping an eye on us.
Yeah, we love that hate watching. Do it.
Yeah, well, your voices matter too, and we want to debate with you.
I love your tears.
So
drink them.
We like disagreeing.
We are excited to talk to anybody and everybody, whether we agree or disagree, because those are the type of conversations we are looking to have.
We will certainly, if we're fighting for our own community in those ways, we will fight for you the same, whether we agree with you or not.
Yeah. So we have an open invitation to anybody on the Board of Education, the City Commission, Troy Unruh. Hit us up. We want to talk to you. So next week we do have Lindley Anderson from the Buffalo Guardians joining us. And we're going to wrap up our first season the first week of September with a really, really awesome guest. Caitlin, tell us a little bit about that before we head out.
Yes, I should have asked how to pronounce her last name. Alexis Loader. I'm not sure if you've heard of her story yet. There has been quite a bit of coverage on that situation. She was a music teacher, I believe, at, I want to make sure that she gets to tell her story, but at a Sacred Heart in her area in Emporia, Kansas, and was directly fired for her involvement in the Vote No campaign and for being outspoken in that area.
A teacher.
And so
we're just oozing teachers.
I was just
save it for next week.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll save it for 2 weeks.
September 7th.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
to wrap
that one's
up.
2 weeks. Yep.
We'll still be live on the
So-
Facebook page, rocking and rolling, and we'll be back live to you guys in October with a whole bunch of new guests and ready to roll. We got 2 weeks left of the season. Please share the show, like, subscribe. Zach says sacrifice goats, whatever you need to do to bring attention to Western Kansas and the only media that's really going on that isn't just recycled AP news.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. See you next Wednesday, 8 o'clock. Thank you for being true believers. Excelsior. Love you all. Bye.
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 Well. Yeah, test. Better. We'll take a minute to envision it, been the vision, we're ripping from a difference of opinion, inquisitive vision it. When the picture in the mirror isn't shit, but give it a minute, fix this image and hit the bricks with the viciousness. But don't play, cause one day you'll be saying, you shoulda, coulda, woulda, but my shit it just wouldn't drop, cause you wouldn't have, but you're so worried, it was your world. And when you hit them with the rhymes, they had no words. Just come back to the flip of the tongue fun that you once had and chuck it like a beer and crush that. Go shave your mustache and write it down, cut that, and show 'em us rap again. Oh, I'm getting tired of that. I don't know anymore what they call that. Getting so you know that something's missing. Let's go show 'em what rap is again. Like taking a step out of your front door for the first time and you want more with the sunshine, but you've been locked away, forgetting you don't care who listens is not part of the mission. Just say what you got to say, whether it makes sense. Just a bunch of gibberish, spit from the hips, slipping so sharp, but splitting your lip. You get a grip, cause as good as your shit is, you know it really isn't a big deal. Cause it'll turn heads bound too. It's your purpose, round two. But you gotta open your eyes and realize it's right here. But to open your mind, you gotta try to fight fear and find a light bright enough to ignite and excite peers. But get their attention, I find. You gotta give them a big boom. You're the fuel, and I got my lighter right here. Oh, I'm getting tired of that. I don't know anymore what they call that. Getting so you know that something's missing. Let's go show 'em what rap is again.